Over the last decade, horror games have flourished more than ever, and they pretty much dominated the spotlight for multiple reasons. So many titles are getting released every year in a way that makes it difficult to keep up with all of them, which eventually leads to missing some of the best horror experiences just because they didn't get enough attention from the gaming media or even players. A few days ago, we published a community post telling the audience that we would be making a video about some insane horror games that people don't even know exist, and we asked them to guess which games we were talking about or if they had any suggestions. But I was honestly a little surprised by the names they suggested because they all included titles that we had already featured on our previous videos, and also because these names are not considered unpopular at all. Most people mentioned Visage and Madison, which are pretty much among the most famous indie horror releases ever created. The point of my video today is to showcase some high-quality horror games that were released in the last 10 years, but they actually passed by quietly, to the extent that many players today don't realize that they ever happened. And to be fair, I can include myself too, because I literally discovered some of the games on this list years after their release.
When the police won't help you and the priests don't believe you, you call on Paul Prospero. You call on me. I'd worked dozens of cases, hundreds. This would be my last one.
You can feel it, right? Something coming from the Vandergriff house.
Ethan disturbed the sleeper. He must be punished.
You're crazy. You've all gone crazy. Where's my mother?
Why are you standing in the sleeper's way?
Get off of him! He's your brother! Get off of him!
The Vanishing of Ethan Carter is a first-person exploration game set in an open world and follows the story of a detective named Paul Prospero, who receives a letter from a young boy named Ethan Carter, who appears to be in danger and apparently ended up missing, hence the name of the game. The game's graphics are stunning, featuring beautiful environments and highly detailed textures. The sound design is also exceptional, with a haunting and atmospheric soundtrack that perfectly captures the game's eerie tone. The puzzles are challenging but never frustrating, and the exploration is rewarding, with hidden areas and secrets to uncover. The gameplay mechanics are relatively simple, with the player taking on the role of Paul Prospero as he investigates the disappearance of Ethan. The experience is primarily focused on examination and analysis, with the player tasked with finding clues and solving brain teasers to progress through the story. One of the most notable aspects of this title is its narrative, which is both complex and emotionally charged. The story deals with themes of loss, grief, and the supernatural, and is expertly crafted to keep the player engaged and invested in the outcome. I can't believe that this game was released in 2014, and it took me nearly 5 years to finally discover it and play it in 2019. If you're into adventures that focus on investigation and exploring different places to reach a satisfying ending to your curiosity, then this one is probably meant for people like you.
Ethan, I fought it off. It's okay.
Grandpa, get away from me!
Your grandmother Gail is protecting me from it. Ethan, I can help you.
When you have a look at this game for the first time, I'm pretty sure you'll think that it was developed by a big studio or that it's some sort of new project from companies like Konami or Capcom. It looks very polished and satisfying to the eye in a way that makes you dismiss the idea that it's an indie title by independent developers. But what's more surprising is that this game passed under the radar of almost 99% of gamers when it was released in 2021. And it's pretty much still anonymous to this day, considering its low amount of sales on Steam. Phantom Project is a prototype psychological horror game that involves solving supernatural mysteries while immersing the player in a spooky atmosphere through realistic shading, dynamic lighting, post-processing, and sound effects. Despite being subject to possible changes and improvements according to the developer, the game's engaging design has made it stand out as one of the most visually stunning horror games. But after almost 2 years of its release, we still don't know if this is a small fraction of an amazing upcoming franchise, or if the creators got disappointed by the number of sales and decided to give up on it. Regardless of what the future has in store, this game remains one of the most insanely beautiful indie horror experiences I've ever seen, and its mysterious fate made it even more enticing.
Isaac, my dear friend, you don't know what you've done with that cursed music box.
Mr. Faber. Good. Time to play detective. What is this?
Song of Horror is a survival horror game released in 2019. The complete edition includes all 5 episodes of the main story, as well as the epilogue and an additional side story. The plot centers around a mysterious antiquities shop run by Sebastian Huscher. Daniel Neuer, an employee of Huscher, receives an old music box from his boss, which triggers a series of supernatural incidents that ultimately lead to the disappearance of Daniel's wife. Huscher's colleagues and associates, including journalist Alina Ramos, retired detective Etienne Bertrand, university professor Sophie de Brethuil, and former psychiatric hospital patient Grace Richards, band together to probe into the strange events and uncover the truth behind what happened to Sebastian Huscher. While exploring different places associated with Huscher, such as an antique shop, the group discovers that he had been studying an ancient malevolent force called the Presence. This force is responsible for the strange events that have been occurring and takes on various forms, such as a ghostly figure or a fearsome creature that can only be defeated with a particular weapon. The group faces numerous difficulties and hurdles while investigating, such as puzzles to solve, dangerous enemies to overcome, and the constant danger of death from the Presence. The story spans 5 episodes, each with its own distinct environment and obstacles. To keep it short, the narrative of Song of Horror is a captivating and engaging account of paranormal terror, enigma, and fascination that will retain the player's attention throughout the gameplay. And even though it's not popular and most people don't even know that it exists, that can't change the fact that it's interesting and suspenseful.
What is this? Someone there.
The song is playing. And once you listen to it, nothing can save you. doesn't know what it is, but he knows what it wants.
I know that none of this makes any sense to you right now, but I need you to understand one thing. If we want to get out of here alive, we need to work together.
Phobia Street Dinfa Hotel is a first-person survival horror game inspired by Resident Evil, but it prioritizes puzzles over combat. It was developed by Pulsatrix Studios, which is a group of independent Brazilian developers. In the story, you assume the role of a journalist named Roberto, who has recently learned about some unusual activities taking place at the Dinfa Hotel in Três Trilhas. Initially, the story seems to be at a dead end, but things take a dramatic turn when Roberto gets trapped in his room and a portal briefly appears in his ensuite. The game commences from this point, and the goal is to escape the room by using environmental clues to unlock doors and collect items that will assist in solving puzzles in other areas. The hotel is the primary setting here, and the player will spend a significant amount of time exploring and backtracking. Certain doors are secured with chains that can only be removed by finding a particular item, and certain floors of the elevator are jammed. Additionally, enemies block the way until the player has obtained a weapon. Although there are 4 different weapons to discover in this game, it is not primarily focused on combat that involves firearms. The game features a limited number of common enemy types and only 3 boss battles. It also involves solving puzzles with the use of a camera that reveals another dimension that can be interacted with. Clues and items can be found in this dimension, but only some elements change when viewed through the camera. So checking the camera regularly is very important. This title was released last year in 2022, and despite its amazing visuals and interesting story, I feel that it didn't receive enough attention compared to its high quality. But as I said before, the game's popularity can never affect its strengths, and that's why I never care about reviews to decide whether a game is worth it or not. If you're a fan of the Little Nightmares franchise and you're not familiar with Dark, then you should probably jump with excitement right now because an amazing experience is ahead of you. Dark Complete Edition is a horror puzzle journey, and it's an updated version of the original installment, which was released in 2019. The Complete Edition includes the original game as well as 2 DLC packs, The Tower and The Crypt. The game takes place in a dreamlike world where the main character, Lloyd, is trapped. Lloyd must navigate through a series of puzzles and overcome obstacles in order to escape his nightmare. The game is known for its unique art style, creepy atmosphere, and mind-bending brain teasers. The Tower DLC adds a new level to the game where Lloyd must climb a tower and avoid dangerous traps, while the Crypt DLC adds a new area where Lloyd must explore a dark and eerie crypt. To summarize it for you, this title is praised for its innovative gameplay mechanics, intriguing story, and beautiful graphics. And the best part is that the puzzles are actually challenging and require players to think creatively to solve them. There's also a haunting soundtrack that adds to the overall atmosphere of the experience. So to all the Little Nightmares enthusiasts out there, I honestly don't know how you can miss diving into the world of Dark. The Sinking City is set in the 1920s and follows the story of private investigator Charles Reed, who has come to the fictional city of Oakmont, Massachusetts, to investigate the cause of a devastating flood that has left the city submerged in water and surrounded by supernatural phenomena. Reed's investigation leads him to uncover a number of strange occurrences and unearthly creatures that have taken over the city. As he delves deeper into the investigation, he discovers that the cause of the flood and the paranormal activities may be linked to a mysterious ancient artifact. As Reed navigates the city and gathers clues, he encounters a number of interesting and eccentric characters, including a group of smugglers, a cult that worships an otherworldly entity, and a scientist who has been experimenting with mind-altering drugs. Throughout the game, players must use their investigative skills to gather clues, solve puzzles, and interview witnesses in order to progress through the story. Along the way, players will face numerous challenges and obstacles, including dangerous creatures and hostile factions. The story is filled with twists and turns, and the game's multiple endings ensure that players will have a unique experience depending on the choices they make throughout the game. When I discovered this title, I felt like I was living in a cave or under a rock, because I didn't realize its existence for a whole year after its release. Despite some noticeable flaws, like the repetitive combat system, it remains an interesting adventure that kind of reminds me of captivating franchises like Sherlock Holmes and Call of Cthulhu. Leithy is a first-person horror game that takes place in an empty old underground facility in Greenland, where the player controls a man named Robert Dawn, who wakes up with no memory of his past. As Robert explores the facility, he uncovers dark secrets and horrors that threaten his sanity and his life. The story of Leithy centers around a mysterious substance called Eva, which was developed by a research team in the facility to enhance human cognition and memory. However, the substance had unintended consequences, and those who ingested it began to exhibit strange and dangerous behaviors. As Robert investigates the place, he encounters hostile creatures and bizarre hallucinations, and he must use his wits and limited resources to survive. Along the way, he discovers the fate of the facility's research team, and he begins to piece together his own past and the role he played in the events that led to the facility's downfall. The story is communicated mainly through environmental storytelling, which involves various clues such as documents and recordings that are spread throughout the environment. The narrative is not presented in a linear fashion, but is instead broken up into pieces that are revealed as the player advances in the game. Depending on the choices and actions of the player throughout the game, there are multiple potential outcomes for the game's conclusion, which can be interpreted in different ways. And if you're a fan of amnesia games, then this one will surely suit you perfectly. But the fact that this title was released in 2016 and it took me years to discover it, proves to me that sometimes great games can easily go undetected for most of us, and sadly, they gradually die without anyone noticing them.
The year is 2084. If they told me what the world would become, I would not have believed them. To dredge up whatever's hiding in the darkest corners of your mind. My name is Daniel Lozowski.
Many of you don't know that before Blooper Team Studios made games like The Medium and The Blair Witch, they actually created an incredible title called Observer, which obviously didn't receive the same attention as the two I mentioned. Observer is set in the year 2084, in a dystopian future where most of humanity lives in a virtual world due to the collapse of the physical world. The player takes on the role of Daniel Lozowski, an elite detective known as an observer, who is tasked with hacking into the memories of suspects to solve crimes. As the game begins, Daniel receives a mysterious message from his disaffected son Adam, leading him to an apartment complex in the slums of Krakow. As Daniel investigates the complex, he encounters a number of disturbing visions and hallucinations, including an outbreak of a virus that has driven the residents to madness. Daniel also discovers that Adam is a victim of a bizarre experiment involving the merging of human consciousness with technology, which has left him trapped in a virtual dimension. As the game progresses, Daniel must navigate through the horrors of the apartment complex and the virtual world of Adam's consciousness to uncover the truth about his son's condition and the sinister forces behind the experiment. Ultimately, the game explores themes of identity, memory, and the ethical implications of advancing technology. The story is told through a combination of cutscenes, environmental storytelling, and interactive sequences where the player must use their detective skills to solve puzzles and gather information. So when it comes to lesser-known high-quality horror games that deserve more awareness, this one definitely should be on the list.
Hey man, what are you doing? Hey! Move away from the body now!
What the fuck is this?
Hey, did you hear me? My God. Hey, no! Oh shit, that's me. No. Get back here! I said, get back here!
I want you to refresh your memory a little bit. Go 10 years back to 2013 and try to remember the titles that were announced during the reveal of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. If you're like me, then this title should clearly look familiar to you because it literally triggered every bit of my interest when I first saw the trailer 10 years ago. It felt like something that we never experienced in gaming before, just like a horror movie where we can control the scenario to discover how the plot ends. Murdered Soul Suspect's story follows the investigation of a murder in the fictional town of Salem, Massachusetts. The protagonist is Ronan O'Connor, a former criminal who turned his life around and became a detective. However, early on in the game, Ronan was murdered while investigating a series of murders committed by a notorious serial killer known as the Bell Killer. As a ghost, Ronan discovers that he is unable to move on to the afterlife until he solves his own murder and brings the Bell Killer to justice. With the help of a young medium named Joy, he sets out to uncover the truth about his death and the identity of the killer. Throughout the game, Ronan and Joy investigate a series of supernatural crimes in Salem, including the murders of several young girls and the desecration of a local church. Along the way, they uncover a dark history of witchcraft and the occult in Salem, and eventually discover that the Bell Killer is a former executioner named Abigail Williams, who has been seeking revenge on the descendants of those who wronged her during the infamous Salem witch trials. As Ronan and Joy approach Abigail, they come to know that she has been manipulating events in Salem to open a portal to the afterlife. This is because she believes that such a portal would enable her to reunite with her dead mother. The game culminates with a final sequence in which Ronan and Joy confront Abigail and her army of ghosts in a battle that decides Salem's fate. Murdered Soul Suspect presents a captivating and eerie mystery that keeps the player engrossed throughout the game's relatively short duration. The exploration of Salem's history and folklore adds an interesting dimension to the story, and the final revelation is both unexpected and satisfying. But with that being said, I feel that it could have been better, and the story is definitely interesting enough to make us stick around for a much longer time. So I will literally jump for excitement if they decide to remake this game and make it bigger and more complex.
You made me kill her.
I'm going to end the video here because I think I've already explained the game's story more than enough. I'm really sorry that the videos are a bit long, but it's mainly because I honestly love to talk thoroughly about the stories of each game, so you can get the full picture and decide if it's interesting or not. I have a feeling that most of you didn't expect the titles on today's list, because I don't remember reading any comment that guessed any of them when we asked you on the community post. I personally chose the games carefully based on how engaging and creative they were, as well as how underrated they were. If you enjoyed them and found them captivating, then don't forget to give us a thumbs up and comment with any other games that you think should have been featured. Until the next video, stay safe and keep your wish list ready.